American Top 40.
Now on AT40, we're up to the latest hit by the superstar rock band whose leader once did a 3-month tour of Europe with a broken neck. Back in '72, Steve Miller was on the East Coast getting ready for his upcoming European tour. And one day his car was hit from behind by a taxi. Well, a short time after that, Steve and his band left for Europe, where they did a very successful concert tour. But all during those 3 months of traveling and performing, the ache in his neck kept getting worse. Until finally, Steve went to another doctor who discovered the real problem: a hairline fracture of one of the bones in his neck. The prescription? Stay in bed and don't move, which is exactly what Steve Miller did for the next 5 months. This week, his latest hit moves up to number 36 on AT40. Here's the Steve Miller Band with Swing Town.
American Top 40.
This is Mark Elliott, smiling in for Kasem and counting down the hits on American Top 40. And now, the hit song by the biggest rock star with the least recognizable face, a singer-guitarist who began hitting the chart 9 years ago and who has never allowed a clear picture of his face to appear on any of his 11 albums. Rolling Stone described him as the most faceless, top-ranked performer to come out of the rock scene. Some of his biggest fans don't know what he looks like. All the photos on his album covers are deliberately blurred or painted over or show only the back of his head. And the man has his reasons. He says, quote, "The reason you can't identify me from my albums is because an album is about music, not an image. I'd rather not be recognizable on the street. I don't want to be a personality. I want people to enjoy music." But popularity has blown the cover for Steve Miller because newspapers and magazines have been running clear, full-face pictures of Steve along with their feature stories on him. His days of walking the streets unrecognized are coming to an end. Moving up 4 positions this week to number 22, here's the Steve Miller Band and Swing Town.
American Top 40.
On American Top 40, Bob Eubanks for Kasem. Now, we're up to the current hit by a rock star whose guitar playing was earning him a grown-up salary when he was barely into his teens. And he only worked weekends. Now, this was back in the 50s when most 12-year-old boys were much more interested in playing football or baseball than in playing a musical instrument. Well, this was 2 years before Elvis and 10 years before the Beatles would inspire tens of thousands of teenage musicians. But this 12-year-old boy was way ahead of his time. In his hometown of Dallas, and still in grade school, he organized a rock and roll band. Then he went out and he lined up jobs for his group to play on weekends. Their first jobs were parties and college dances, and not just in Dallas, but all over Texas, in Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And by the time he was 13 and working just on weekends, this guitar prodigy was averaging $400 a month. And I'll tell you, back in the 50s, that was a respectable income for an adult. Well, this enterprising kid, now an established and highly respected rock star, is Steve Miller. And Steve says that he used to get a few puzzled looks when he was up on the bandstand in the old days, not just because of his age, but also because a lead guitar wasn't common then. Now, of course, the main pillar of rock music is guitar, and nobody does it like Steve Miller. His latest hit drops to number 39 this week, Hard Like a Wheel, the Steve Miller Band.
The hits from coast to coast.